Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I just went to see The Crimes of Grindlewald, the second film in the Fantastic Beasts series. Now, before I get into this video, I just want to say this video is not meant in hatred, and to be honest, I am trying to keep the hope that J.K. Rowling knows exactly what she's doing, and a part of me really wants to believe that she knows exactly what she's doing, and that half of the plot holes that I'm about to talk about from this film are actually going to be resolved within the series. There are about, I think, like 4 or 3 more films coming out. I think 3 more films coming out in this series. Any plot holes that are in there, I'm hoping that she's well thought out, and I'm trying to trust. The inner child inside of me wants to trust that J.K. Rowling knows exactly what she's doing. This video is not meant in hatred. I'm just going to point out some of the plot holes within the story. The first thing that everybody has been talking about, which is the main thing that really wound me up when I was watching the film, is McGonagall's presence. Somewhere within the film, McGonagall pops up and someone even says her name. I think it's where Dumbledore is teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts, which I'll get to in a minute. The Ministry come in and McGonagall is like, "You can't come in here," or she says something along the lines of that. Professor Dumbledore, I think it is, says her name, and you're kind of like, Professor McGonagall? But you only see her face for like 2 seconds, so to be honest, J.K. Rowling could have got away with that if that had been her whole role in the film, but she is then shown later on with Lita, I think her name is. She's later on shown in a flashback with her, and you are seeing so much more of her, and it is confirmed that it is actually the McGonagall that we all know and love, because her name is in the credits and that's what she's credited as. According to Pottermore, and according to fan calculations based off of an interview that McGonagall does with Rita Skeeter in one of the books. I think it's in the 5th book, I could be wrong. It's the 4th or 5th book. She has an interview with Rita Skeeter. Rita asks her how long she's been working at Hogwarts, and she says that she's been working at Hogwarts for 39 years or something like that. And so fans have cleverly figured out that she should have been born in 1935, and I have heard that her birth year was put onto Pottermore itself. However, I don't know the legitimacy of this claim, because when you go onto Pottermore, it only says her birth month and the exact date. It doesn't say the birth year. I'm not sure if it ever did show her birth year on Pottermore, simply because I don't really use Pottermore too much. These are the rumours circling the internet, and I've seen it all over Twitter that J.K. Rowling has taken down her birth year from Pottermore to cover it up. If J.K. Rowling did, that's very shady, and I definitely don't agree with it. If she simply made a mistake, or she's simply trying to cater to fan service so that we can be like, "Oh, that's McGonagall, I remember her," then she needs to own up to it rather than trying to cover it up. I think it's fine to put McGonagall in the films as long as she acknowledges that maybe it doesn't exactly line up with what the books say. If she wants to say that she's not going by book canon and she's only going by film canon, then I would definitely forgive it. A lot of people forget that the books are a separate thing to the films, so if you don't consider the interview with McGonagall with Rita Skeeter and you just take that out completely, then there's not really too much issue with it. And to be honest, only hardcore nitpicky fans like myself would actually notice this error. I'm not too triggered by it, but it did kind of ruin the viewing experience for me, because in my head I was thinking, okay, she shouldn't be here, she shouldn't be born yet. And Fantastic Beasts takes place in 1926, and 1927 is when Crimes of Grindelwald takes place. So it was the Order of Phoenix, actually. She's been teaching since 1956 when she was 21. So if you do the maths, she shouldn't even be born yet. She should be like -8, -9 years old in the Crimes of Grindelwald. Now, a lot of people are also saying that she could be using the time turner to go back and teach. I don't know why she would be doing that. Maybe she knows something that Dumbledore needs to know to be able to defeat Grindelwald, or she knows something that might help out their situation with Credence or whatever. While I would hate to see the time turner be brought back into this series, because I think it just messes everything up, like with the Cursed Child, I just think it messes everything up, and I really just don't want to see the time turner revisited. I think time turning is too complicated to keep bringing back into the series, because it just causes more plot holes. I would prefer that than to just have this glossed over and for J.K. Rowling to not explain McGonagall's presence. If McGonagall doesn't have a huge presence within the rest of the films, I won't see the point in J.K. Rowling creating this plot hole in the first place, because she didn't have much of a role in this film. She could have been replaced by any other teacher. It also begs the question of what subject is she teaching? Is she teaching Transfiguration? Because in the books it says that Dumbledore should be teaching that, and someone else was teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts, but in Fantastic Beasts universe, for some reason, Dumbledore is teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts, which also threw me off because I was like, wait, he wasn't a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, so this makes no sense. And I know, again, this is very nitpicky, and some people will not even care about this change, but for someone that's a huge nerd and cares about details, all I could think was, wait, this is not the class he should be teaching. Is he just covering for someone? It just kind of annoys me a little bit, and it annoys anyone that really reads the books closely and things like this. It's just small little details that they could easily get right, and I don't see the point of making him teach Defense Against the Dark Arts other than the fact that the Ministry put cuffs on him so that he can't actually teach it anymore. That was the only reason you would put him in Defense Against the Dark Arts, and I just don't see the point, because they could have easily still cuffed him and had him not use magic for Transfiguration and stuff, because you still need to use your wand for Transfiguration in some instances to demonstrate, like, you know, in Harry Potter where they're changing like cups into like animals, and Ron, he has a broken wand, I think it's Chamber of Secrets, and he changes the cup into a rat, and it's like a rat with, it's like a cup with a tail. Do you remember that? And like, you have to use your wand for that. Dumbledore would need his wand for stuff like that to show demonstrations, so I don't see the point in putting him in Defense Against the Dark Arts other than to show a cool scene where he's like dueling the students, which actually I did really like that scene. I really loved the scene where he was dueling with, I think it was a Gryffindor kid, and he was like really snarky, and I actually really loved that. I found myself smiling and really enjoying it. It showed what a great teacher Dumbledore is, and it showed how much the students respected him, which was great with his characterization. It had one of the kids defending him, I think it was the same Gryffindor kid. When the Ministry come in, he's like, he's the best professor we've got here in this school, and Dumbledore's like, no, stop this. I thought that was really cute. I did really love the scenes with Dumbledore in. Thought he was hot as hell. Just thought I'd mention that. I didn't have a huge problem with it, but for a huge Harry Potter nerd, you might be thinking, why is he teaching this? Okay, so the first scene shows Grindelwald escaping from Azkaban, okay? Basically, the whole plot is, this gets confusing, and I found myself being like, what? Okay, so Grindelwald is first shown in Azkaban, and they've like cut out his tongue and stuff because he's really persuasive, and, oh, computer. He knows how to sneak out of Azkaban, basically. And you know, Azkaban is supposed to be like impossible to escape and all this, and this is where I have an issue, because Azkaban has always been known to be like nearly impossible to escape, and yet somehow Grindelwald has been able to switch himself with his minion using Polyjuice Potion, which, first of all, how does everyone always have Polyjuice Potion? Because I was told in Chamber of Secrets that it takes months for Polyjuice Potion to even be brewed, so you're telling me that somehow Grindelwald got a follower to brew a Polyjuice Potion. He somehow contacted him through Azkaban when he shouldn't be able to because there's such high security measures. He somehow contacted him, waited months for the Polyjuice Potion to be brewed, then somehow the follower got a bit of Grindelwald's hair, unless that was already figured out as a plan B type thing in case he got captured, and then put the hair in the drink. Somehow Grindelwald inside of Azkaban also got a hold of Polyjuice Potion inside of his cell. They both drank it at exactly the same time so that it would run out at exactly the same time so that their plan would work. And then Grindelwald decides to go back to the prison to break out his follower for some reason. If he's really, evil, would he even bother to get his follower back? But I don't know. And he goes back to save the guy that's pretending to be him. Both their Polyjuice Potions run out. Grindelwald, there's this huge scene that I actually quite enjoyed that was quite good, where Grindelwald gets the guy. There's this huge attack scene. He has a pet that he throws out the window. He he basically saves the guy, and he's like, well done, and he gives him a new tongue. I just thought, what was the point? If it's that easy for Grindelwald to get out of Azkaban, it's that easy for him to be contacting people outside of Azkaban to brew Polyjuice Potion to come up with this plan in the first place. What was the point? Why didn't he just escape if he's that clever and that good at getting through Azkaban's high security? Why didn't he just escape rather than having this huge, intricate kind of scene go on where they're switching places and you're like, wait, who's who again? I think that was done more for cinematic purposes and less for like logic. In my brain, I'm just thinking, okay, what was the point of that? Like, why? Why did you need to put your follower in prison pretending to be you? And can't Azkaban detect that someone's used a polyjuice potion? Like, you would think that would be security detail that would be put in place for a magical prison. Like, it just would, like, it just makes no sense to me. I'm like, Azkaban is meant to be this place that's really scary that no one can escape from, so why was there nothing put in place to stop people using polyjuice potion? Otherwise, polyjuice potion is just used all the time and there's no protection against it. Did he just get his follower to visit him? Are there like visitation rights in Azkaban? His follower visited him and then gave him the polyjuice potion, but didn't the guards see? I don't know, there's so many questions with the first scene that I can't even. This one really bothered me, and I remember looking at my sister and being like, are you serious? Me and Bethany, my sister, had researched into this film a little bit before we went, and we were already low expectations on it. I already knew that it had terrible reviews all over Odeon. I'd seen a few YouTube videos on it and I'd spoiled most of it for myself, but then none of it made sense to me. I felt like I had to see the film for it to all make sense because it was so confusing. This thing really did bother me. So basically, at the end of Fantastic Beasts, Jacob has no memory, right? His memory is taken away by that big creature that I've forgotten the name of, that Newt sets out across the land to like erase all the Muggles' memories of magic, right? And you see this scene where Jacob's like forgotten everything, and to be fair, there is a scene in the bakery where he's like making cakes and they look like the creatures, so you can argue that it was kind of hinted at that his good memories were still there anyway because he remembered the creatures like subconsciously and he was making like bakery items shaped like them, so you can argue that this was all planned out. However, what was the point in having his memory erased in the first place if in the next film you were just going to be like, oh yeah, doesn't count? Because I remember Newt walks in and he sees Tina and Jacob in his house, and Jacob's like, hey buddy, and he's like, dude, how can you remember me? And he's like, it didn't work, buddy. His lines are literally like, it didn't work, buddy, and I'm just there like, are you for real right now? Like, what? And he says he only remembers the good memories, and for him most of it was good memories because it's magic and because he's friends with Tina and Newt and everybody else and Queenie, and so he remembers. And then Queenie filled in the spots that were bad, and that's it. Like, that's the explanation, like, that is it. There's no kind of follow up on that. It's just like, yeah, didn't count. And I know they didn't use the actual memory erasing like charm, which I've forgotten the name of. God, I'm such a fake fan. So I guess you can argue that maybe it's different rules for the potion thing that they dropped over in Rain on the Muggles, but to me that just seemed like a bit of a cop-out and made the entire end of the first film just completely pointless, because it's like, okay, what was the point in that cliffhanger? Because I thought it was going to be interesting, like Jacob meets them all over again and they become friends all over again and it would be really cute, and by the end of the film he gets his memories back. Do you know what I mean? I thought it was going to be like this huge storyline in the second film of Jacob not remembering and rediscovering magic, and I thought that was going to be really fun to see him discover magic a second time round, but with higher stakes. That just didn't happen, and I really didn't like it. Also, with that logic, you can argue that all of the Muggles in that city would to some extent also still remember magic, because if only the bad memories come away, surely some Muggles would think of magic as being a great thing to exist, and so by that logic they could remember the magic that happened in the city, because although it was bad in destroying the city and stuff, some people might think of it as, oh my god, this is amazing, magic is real. I know that would be me for sure, and so they would remember the magic despite it being bad memories, because they're like, oh my god, magic is real, this is so cool, this could cure diseases, blah blah blah. Like, surely by that logic, if Jacob can remember the magic, then some of the Muggles that they've erased the memories of must also remember magic, which causes a huge problem, because that means that half of the Muggles could potentially remember magic, and so what was the point in erasing all their memories? That means that magic is exposed because they remember the good of the magic. It's very messed up logic, and you can't control how someone views a situation. Like, sure, it is bad the city was being destroyed, but some Muggles might still view it as a good thing. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm trying to say to you? It's a plot hole. In the books, you hear about Dumbledore's sister. I really do have to keep looking at my notes because there is so much going on in this film that I had to make notes. Adriana Dumbledore was killed during a battle between Grindelwald and Dumbledore, which I thought might be interesting and we might see in this film series, which would be great to see from Dumbledore's point of view, and would be great for the fans to see, because this has been a big thing. Even in the Harry Potter books this was mentioned, and this is something I've actually always been interested in as his backstory. But in these films this event has already happened, so they've already accidentally killed Adriana in a duel. Adriana accidentally gets killed in a fight with Grindelwald and Dumbledore, and then they make a pact to never fight each other again? Or did they make the pact first and that's why the spell rebounded and hit Adriana, because they shouldn't have been fighting in the first place? I guess that would make sense, but I just kind of want clarification on that. I know it's a small detail, but I just kind of want to know. Another thing with the blood pact thing, I've got notes but I'm not even following them because I keep thinking of like things that just don't make sense. So they make a blood pact, right, which is where they like cut their hands and then promise that they're not going to fight each other, and then they have like little charms or necklaces or something, or Grindelwald has a necklace or something like this. There's a necklace involved somewhere. A blood pact is something that we've never heard of before, especially in the Harry Potter series. Obviously we've heard of the unbreakable vow, which is also mentioned in other parts of the story, right? An unbreakable vow is something you do, so they like link hands. You see it in Harry Potter, I think it's Snape and someone does it, like leave scars on their hands, and basically if you break an unbreakable vow you die, like both of you die. If there is a tamer version of this called a blood pact where you don't die if you break it, wouldn't everybody be making blood pacts as opposed to making the unbreakable vow? It just causes plot holes for me. If I was a wizard and I was going to make like a promise to someone and someone said let's make an unbreakable vow, I'd be like, hold on, I don't quite want to, we don't know what's going to happen, and if we break this we're both going to die. So how about we go for the more tame version and we do a blood vow? Now, we don't actually know, I don't think. I could have not been paying attention, or maybe it just wasn't mentioned, I don't know. Maybe a blood pact is the same thing, like you die if you break it, but then if that's the case, what is the difference between an unbreakable vow and a blood pact? You know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand. Because if you say that you don't die during a blood pact, that creates the problem of, well, why do people use an unbreakable vow in the first place? Is it just like a higher level of commitment and it's just more hardcore that some hardcore wizards just go for, or... Do you know what I mean? Because if I was a wizard, I would go for the blood pact as opposed to dying. Okay, this is another one, but I was thinking about it last night. It was keeping me up thinking about these things, because some of these things aren't really plot holes, and I don't want to jump down J.K. Rowling's throat because I do want to believe that she actually has it all figured out. But basically, credence is an obscurial, right? Which is where, through lack of love or something like this, I can't quite remember, it's been a while since I watched Fantastic Beasts, you have all this power inside of you that you cannot control, which makes you incredibly dangerous, and it just bursts out at random moments, which is why an obscurial is so dangerous and so threatening, because you just, even the person with the obscurial inside of them doesn't know when it's going to happen, right? Now Credence, he seems to be able to control it, because there's a scene where he's attacking a guy from the Ministry, I'm pretty sure, or he's working for Grindelwald or something like this. He attacks a guy using his power of the obscurial, but it seems as though he can completely control it and he can turn whenever he likes, which isn't really a plot hole, because I guess that explains why, first of all, Credence has been able to live way past what an obscurial should, because the lifespan of an obscurial is like 10 years old, because usually the power is too much and kills the child. Credence is like 29 or 28 or something, like he's in his 20s, so he has long outlived the lifespan of a normal obscurial, which means he is way more powerful than a normal obscurial, and he is a rarity, which would explain why everyone is so like, we need to get Credence, because he's a rarity, and so that does explain why Grindelwald wants him on his side. So that's not really a plot hole, but I don't know, I just thought I'd bring it up. Now, another thing that we find out with this film is that Nagini, Voldemort's snake, is actually a person. Now, this I really do not have an issue with. I think personally it would be interesting to find out the backstory of Nagini and how she ended up turning into Voldemort's snake, and I think the whole Maledictus, which we've never heard of before, which means that basically she's an animagus that is going to eventually be cursed to forever be her animagus form. So she will one day be a snake forever, which does explain why she is a snake in the Harry Potter films and why she ends up being on Voldemort's side. I think in this film you only saw her say like 2 things maybe, and all she really served as her purpose for this film was following Credence around and looking scared. She seems to be on the side of Grindelwald also, which confuses me because I'm like, okay, so how did she go from being a good girl to going and siding with Voldemort and literally having such a close bond with Voldemort in the Harry Potter books? A lot of people have pointed out that she most likely, by the time she becomes Voldemort's servant, has been a snake for like 50 years on her own and hasn't been able to communicate with any humans or anyone, just been roaming around in the wizarding world as a snake. That's probably very depressing. She hasn't uttered a word of English to anybody, she hasn't been able to interact with anyone that she knows, and so she's probably been driven crazy by loneliness and just by being a snake for that long, that by the time she comes across Voldemort, who can speak Parseltongue and actually communicate with her, she's probably just longing for a connection with someone, and that's why she becomes so close to Voldemort, is because she finally has someone that she can talk to about her loneliness and how she's feeling, someone she can communicate with, and she probably doesn't care what side he's on or what he wants. She probably just wants a companion. When he offers to turn her into a Horcrux, who knows, that probably makes her immortal. A lot of people are saying that it's a problem that Voldemort turned a living creature into a Horcrux. Maybe part of being a Maledictus, I think it was, is that she's immortal anyway, or maybe her being a Horcrux makes her immortal, which would make no sense for Harry. But I mean, I guess it would actually cause less plot holes for her to have been a human in the first place and for her to be a Maledictus, because it does explain why Voldemort's snake has such a long lifespan, and it also would explain why he turns her into a Horcrux, because if a Maledictus makes you immortal but you're just a snake forever, then that does explain why he would attach his soul to a living creature, if you know what I mean. Also, she can protect herself, so anyone trying to destroy her, like Neville, she can try and defend herself against it, which would be a very good idea for a Horcrux, if you know what I mean. The only issue with Nagini actually being in The Crimes of Grindelwald is that she doesn't have much of a role. However, it's not a huge issue because maybe she plays more of a role throughout the rest of the films. I actually quite liked her character. I don't think I'll ever be able to sympathise with her because she does turn out to be Nagini the Snake, Voldemort's servant in the next Harry Potter films, but it is interesting to see her be on the good side for this film and to see her as a human. I do actually think that J.K. Rowling probably did have this in mind 20 years ago. I don't think she's lying about this, and I don't think it's something that J.K. Rowling just added on. I do have issues with J.K. Rowling, but I don't think that this is something she just added on for the fun of it. I do think it's a fun little Easter egg for fans as well, to be like, oh my god, that's Nagini, Voldemort's snake. Like, I do think it's cool to have a history and a background for the snake. Did we need it? Probably not. The only other problem I have, other than Nagini not having much lines, is that she is used in some kind of wizarding circus where she's like a freak, and that didn't really make much sense to me, because surely in the wizarding world, in Animagus and Maledictuses and all of this and shapeshifting and transfiguration should make it quite common for people to see wizards turning into animals, and so the only special thing about her is that one day she will be a snake forever, but the circus people can't see that. All they're seeing is a woman turning into a snake. That could be a complete and utter lie. So even if Maledictuses are really rare, they could have literally grabbed any animagus, put it in a cage and said, oh, this is a Maledictus, gonna be a snake or lion or whatever the fuck it is forever. And the crowds people would have just been there in awe anyway, because there's no way to see that it's actually a Maledictus, like there's no proof. Why is she in a circus? Because it's not an extraordinary thing. Like, wizards turn into animals constantly in the wizarding world, and so I don't quite understand the concept of having wizard freaks in a circus. Like, even in the olden days, it doesn't really make much sense, but that's the only issue I had with it, was her being in a circus, and it didn't really serve much point other than explaining that she's a Maledictus, really. Another thing that I actually forgot about until I was watching videos back about the circus scene, so Newt goes looking for Tina afterwards, right? And he uses this weird dust stuff. I'm not sure, I can't remember if he like gets it from his pocket or if he conjures it from his wand, but he uses this dust stuff to basically see what happened the day before at the circus so that he can find Tina. He like blows it and he sees everything that happened. I just think this creates a lot of plot holes, because first of all, we've never been introduced to this dust magic of like seeing the past before in Harry Potter, and I think it would have it really would have solved a lot of issues in Harry Potter. Like in the Goblet of Fire, when Harry puts his name in the goblet and everybody believes that, why didn't Dumbledore be like, hang on, he didn't, this person did. Or like there are so many situations where they could have used the dust, like, oh, who petrified Moaning Myrtle? Oh my god, it was the basilisk. And if this kind of magic was available, and Newt is perfectly capable of doing it, and Newt is quite lesser than Dumbledore and Grindelwald, like in terms of powers and magic ability, then surely Dumbledore or Grindelwald or literally anybody in the Harry Potter series would have been capable of using this magic. And so if there was dust that lets you see like 24 hours in the past, this could have been used many times in the Harry Potter series to figure out mysteries, and whilst the students wouldn't have been able to use it like Harry and stuff because it's probably a little bit advanced for them, you would think that an adult or an experienced wizard would have stepped in at some point and helped the children by using this dust. Do you know what I mean? I just think it creates a few plot holes. I mean, it was cool, but at the same time it's like, wait. Because this is the whole reason J.K. Rowling destroyed the Time Turners in one of the Harry Potter books. I forget which one, I think it was Order of Phoenix. The whole reason she destroyed them was because of the plot holes and because of that, oh, they could have gone back into home and like thwarted Voldemort before Harry's parents even got killed and stuff like this. This is why she destroyed the Time Turners. So bringing in another thing to do with time, even though it's not time travel, just creates so many issues because it could have solved a lot of mysteries within the Harry Potter series. This one I'm going to talk about because I made a video about 10 months ago now where I was talking about J.K. Rowling and whether or not she's problematic, and I got a lot of hate on that video, but I mainly got a lot of people agreeing with me. One of the things I did talk about was representation with Grindelwald and Dumbledore being gay. But a lot of people did attack me saying you're not in the LGBTQ community and so you have no say on what we want or the kind of representation that we need and blah 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 blah. In my video I'm sure I said, you know, I don't know what people want, and I'm sure I was very nice about it and I went about it in the right way, but some people, they don't really listen and hatred just comes out. For me personally, I don't think it's a huge thing that they actually need to show Dumbledore and Grindelwald being gay, but if J.K. Rowling has gone ahead and said that they were gay and she's gone about adding that Dumbledore's gay after her canon books, whilst it's not particularly canon because she just said it rather than writing it into paper form in the books. If you're going to say it, you do need to stick by it in some way, and I am okay with just subtle hints because they're no longer like a romantic thing, but it would come across in the Crimes of Grindelwald and this kind of series leading on from Fantastic Beasts, it would come across and there would be some kind of mention of it surely, because Dumbledore wouldn't want to hurt Grindelwald because of their past relationship, if you know what I mean. Even if they're like bitter exes, I'm sure there is some kind of longing for Grindelwald, and you have confirmation of this because in the Crimes of Grindelwald, Dumbledore is stood at the Mirror of Erised, or Eristed, or however you pronounce it, and he stood there looking in, and the whole point of the mirror is you see what your heart desires the most. When he looks in the mirror, he sees Grindelwald, which to me shouted, he still longs for Grindelwald in a romantic way. Maybe I'm just thinking this because I follow J.K. Rowling and what she says outside of the books and stuff, and I follow her on Twitter and stuff, so I know that she's claimed Dumbledore is gay. Anyone that doesn't know she claimed Dumbledore is gay, like not a huge fan, that's in the cinema might not have picked up on it, and they might have been like, wait, why is he longing after Grindelwald? Is it because he's longing to destroy him or what? Like, but for any hardcore fans that do follow what J.K. Rowling says, I think they would have got the link like, oh, he still longs for Grindelwald in a way, like, oh, okay, this is kind of representation. And I don't think it needs for them to be like kissing and showing like romantic scenes or anything like this, or to make it full on obvious that Dumbledore's gay. I don't think he needs to come out in these films. I just think that subtle hints like this I will be more than happy with, because it's a little nudge towards any hardcore fans, like, see, you can see that there's a connection because they used to be lovers, without explicitly saying it, because I do not think that it is too important to the storyline other than the whole emotional turmoil of Dumbledore being like, oh, but I can't hurt him because I still love him, which is interesting and I do think should be included, but maybe not to a huge extent, because in the Harry Potter books romance was never really a huge theme in them, which is why I love them so much, because it's stories where the romance is just kind of a side thing that goes on that you don't really see a lot of, even between like Harry and Ginny and stuff. It's just another one of the things that he has to deal with rather than being the main focus of the story. Like, romance is not at the height of the Harry Potter books, so you can argue that Grindelwald and Dumbledore's relationship doesn't actually need to be included that extensively. I was actually very happy with the way they handled the whole Grindelwald Dumbledore thing in this film, and you can disagree or you could agree. I mean, I can't remember what my opinion on it was before, but I do think they need the representation, but not in a huge way. I just want a satisfying enough nudge to the audience and the hardcore fans that, oh, they had a thing together. And I think it should be made a little bit more obvious to people that don't know and don't follow what J.K. Rowling says on Twitter. Some people might not pick up on it because they don't have this knowledge. Like, I'm not sure I would have picked up on it without knowing that J.K. Rowling said Dumbledore is gay, if that makes sense. The blood pact thing on top of the whole, oh, he used to be my ex, I love him, I'm still longing for him thing, I feel like that's a bit of a cop-out, so that audience members that don't know Dumbledore is gay can be like, oh, I understand, that's why he doesn't want to fight him, because of the blood pact. It seems like a weak excuse. I would prefer it if there was no blood pact involved and it was more just hinted, oh, there's something going on between them, because he does say in one of the scenes, oh, we were closer than brothers. I think that was enough hint for me. Like, I don't need Dumbledore to stand there and go, yeah, we were gay. Like, we were lovers. I don't need Dumbledore to say that, and I think saying closer than brothers was good enough for me. I really was happy with that, and I think that even non-fans might have caught onto that. Some people might not still catch onto it. They might be like, what do they mean by that? Best friends? Like, what do they mean? I just wish that the whole blood pact thing didn't come into it, because I don't think that you needed the blood pact to make all of it make sense, if you know what I mean, with all of these hints. Another thing in this scene where Dumbledore says, oh, we were closer than brothers, the Ministry come in and they like project this kind of image of a memory of them doing the blood pact together, and one thing I hadn't really thought about until afterwards was, how did the Ministry get this memory? Because it didn't really need to happen, because we are shown the blood pact being made in the Mirror of Iris as well, and I feel like they showed it too much and kind of made it a thing a little bit too much in the films. Because why did the Ministry have this memory of Dumbledore and Grindelwald making a blood pact? Where did they get it from? That's just a very small nitpicky thing that people probably wouldn't have picked up on, and isn't really that important because it's magic, and you know, you can explain anything away with magic. Obviously you have the pensieve in Harry Potter where they like extract memories and stuff, and if they made such a big deal out of that, if it's so easy to just conjure up other people's memories, why would you need the pensieve in the first place? It's just, that was a very small thing that I thought I'd bring up, a very small thing, but it doesn't really bother me that much. It's just a tiny little plot hole that was in there. Okay, this one Bethany pointed out to me, and I hadn't actually thought about it too much during the film. It did occur to me once. I was kind of like, oh, this hasn't come back up, like I thought he was going to get captured. So at the beginning of the film it introduces Newt in the Ministry of Magic trying to get like a passport or something like this, or like papers, documentation, so that he can travel the world again because he's been banned because of the events in the first film or something like this. He basically gets denied because he turns down his position at the Ministry of Magic, which is fair enough, he doesn't want to work there, and he's not allowed to leave the country. What was the point of this? Because unless this is going to come up in the next few films and he gets captured and it's a huge problem, it didn't come up in this film, and the whole time you're kind of thinking, okay, when is he going to get captured? When is this going to become an issue for him? Because he's travelling right now. He's like gone to Paris and stuff, and he shouldn't be here. And when the Ministry turn up, when Grindelwald is doing this huge master speech and everything, I thought, oh shit, the Ministry are here. Like, they're going to see Newt and they're going to be like, what are you doing here? Like, I know they've got bigger problems with Grindelwald and stuff, but once Grindelwald's vanished, they're going to be like, Newt, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be allowed to travel. And they're going to try and catch him, and it's going to make another scene where Newt is trying to flee away from the Ministry because they've focused their attention on him after Grindelwald's disappeared. But that never happened. It just never comes up again. Like, he's not allowed to travel and it's against the law, and he's going to get locked up in Azkaban if he leaves the country, and then he leaves the country and there's just no repercussions for it. There's no, like, there's just nothing. Unless this is going to come up in the next few films where he's travelling, I mean, that is a possibility. They didn't want to cram too much in one film, I suppose. Did think that was a bit strange that they would do that. Like, what was the point? Was it just to introduce his brother in the Ministry? Like, it just seemed a little bit pointless to me. Now, this really does seem that I'm picking at every little thing, but it's just things that went through my head as I was watching the film that did irritate me and took me out of the viewing experience. Like, I didn't feel like I was in the story. I was more like, wait, hold on, wait. The whole Newt and Tina thing was very cute at the end of Fantastic Beasts, and I was thinking this is going to be a slow burn over the duration of the films, and they're not going to get together till like the fifth Fantastic Beasts film, which I would have been fine with. But I really love a good slow burn where people they slowly fall in love, and it's subtle hints, and I just love that stuff. Like with Ron and Hermione, that's why I ship them so hardcore, because from the first film you could tell they were going to end up together, at least in my opinion. Then when it builds up to Deathly Hallows, you're so anticipating it that it just makes it a brilliant moment. You get into this film and it's just like common knowledge that they both like each other, and Newt has a huge thing for her. And I did find the scenes where he was like comparing her eyes to Scalamanders really cute, and like the scene where they're like awkwardly talking about whether or not he's married because his name has got muddled up with his brothers. I did find that all very cute, and it was well done. It's just I would have preferred a slow burn, and that's just a tiny little nitpick. Yusuf Kama, I think his name is, he has an unbreakable vow to kill... This is where it gets confusing. He has an unbreakable vow to kill another baby. It's so hard to explain. So basically he's made an unbreakable vow to kill someone, but turns out Lita has already killed that baby when the Titanic is what we're assuming it was. She has already accidentally drowned the baby or been responsible for the death of the baby, whose name I can't remember. It's all so very confusing, like so very confusing. Karma should have killed the baby that Lita accidentally killed. So because his unbreakable vow can't be fulfilled, surely he should be dead, which would explain why Credence isn't actually a Dumbledore, which I'll get into in a bit. I do think that J.K. Rowling has planned this out, and I do think that there are plot holes on purpose for fans to figure out. So it's not a huge thing for me because there are more films to come, and I think people are getting angry too quickly before seeing the rest of the film, so it probably will be explained, but that's just something that I noticed, and something that my sister noticed especially. I think that Grindelwald is lying to Credence to get him to hate Albus so that he can kill him and use his powers as an Obscurial to kill Albus. This is so confusing. The thing that actually really bothered me a lot, and this one is an actual full-on criticism that I don't even want to give the benefit of the doubt for. Grindelwald, the whole title of this freaking film is The Crimes of Grindelwald. We are never told what his crimes are, or why he's so wanted, or why he's such an evil wizard. For me, there's a disconnect as to why we should be hating him so much. And as a viewer, I didn't feel any hatred towards him as a villain. And especially when he gets up on this stage and he's talking to everyone and he's explaining that he doesn't view muggles as any less and wizards should be able to love whoever they want. I'm thinking, okay, what's wrong with this guy then? He could be lying and deceitful, but we're not really shown much of his bad side other than him escaping Azkaban at the start of the film and killing a few people. We're not really shown enough for me to hate him as much as I hated Voldemort. And he stood there talking about how he wants to prevent World War II, and he's showing all these horrible things that do actually end up happening historically in the Muggle world of World War II, and he wants to prevent that. To prevent that, he wants wizards to take over. I'm just thinking, okay, so he wants to stop the Nazis and he wants to help the Muggles get out of another world war. So what is wrong with Grindelwald, and why are the main characters so against him? We haven't been shown what his crimes are yet to justify us being against him and thinking he's being deceitful. So all I'm thinking in my head is Grindelwald such a bad guy? And I actually found myself wanting to be on his side. So when our main characters are like fighting against him and they're being like, don't join him, Queenie, I'm here thinking, why not? He's made a pretty good pitch as to why he's not actually as bad as people think he is. So are his crimes that he's just committed a few crimes in order to be able to achieve this vision? Because technically, even in Harry Potter, Harry, Ron and Hermione and Deathly Hallows break some laws to be able to defeat Voldemort, like breaking into Gringotts and stuff. So if we can justify our main characters breaking laws for the greater good, then why can't we justify Grindelwald's actions for the greater good? Like, so far we haven't really been shown much to show that he is this big, powerful, big bad wizard, other than that he's escaped Azkaban and he had a fight with Dumbledore once that led to Dumbledore's sister's death. But then Dumbledore's also a part of that because it takes two to fight. So I haven't really been shown much as a viewer to hate Grindelwald, really. I don't know, to me that was just kind of a throw-off, because they really should have spent some time showing how evil he is and how unhumane he is and showing the crimes of Grindelwald. Like, that is the title of the film, and I never got to see that. For me, I'm just thinking, what's wrong with Grindelwald? Leave him alone. That is not a good sign of good storytelling, in my opinion. Credence is revealed to be Dumbledore's secret brother, right? I don't believe that this is true, and people jumping down J.K. Rowling's throat for this, I believe this is a red herring and that we shouldn't be judging before we see the other films. I don't think he is actually Dumbledore's brother, and I think anyone getting irate about it before they've even seen the rest of the films is ridiculous. I think that Grindelwald has alternative motives and he's completely lying about Credence being a Dumbledore. However, the Phoenix did turn up for hymns, and it was very emphasised throughout the film that Phoenixes have this like loyalty to Dumbledore's, which does make sense with canon because, you know, Fawkes has always been a thing with Dumbledore in the Harry Potter books, so that doesn't break canon at all and didn't bother me. But I do wonder why they emphasise that. The part of me that still loves J.K. Rowling as a child just really wants to cling on to the hope that she has not messed everything up on purpose, and I just want everything to be like explained throughout the rest of the films. Hopefully there are the rest of the films, because I heard this one performed terribly. I'm praying that J.K. Rowling has not just made all of these mistakes for money. So you know the whole lore of Harry Potter and the whole thing that ends the series and the amazingness that makes Harry Potter so great and makes me think that J.K. Rowling is such a genius is the whole thing of the Elder Wand and how, you know, the Master of the Wand, that's all very important to Voldemort's demise and the storyline of Deathly Hallows. Tina actually disarms Grindelwald at the end of Fantastic Beasts, apparently. I don't remember this, but apparently she does. Technically, Tina should be the Master of the Elder Wand, right? Because anyone that disarms someone that is holding the Elder Wand then becomes the Master of that Deathly Hallow. You cannot just brush over it like that. It's clearly an issue, and it is actually a huge problem for the series and really just undoes everything from Harry Potter. That just really pissed me off. The inclusion of Nicholas Flamel, I actually didn't have a problem with him being included. I found his scenes very humorous, especially when Jacob grabs his hand and he's so weak because he's so old that he's like, ow! And I actually really liked his character, and I thought, oh, Nicholas Flamel, like, it gave me a bit of that nostalgia from Harry Potter, which is, I'm sure, is the fan service that he was put there for. The thing I didn't like was when he went into his cupboard and the Philosopher's Stone was just chilling there next to the notebook that he gets out. I'm pretty sure it's a notebook, and I was just thinking, that's so stupid. Like, the whole point of the Philosopher's Stone is that they're trying to protect the stone for Nicholas Flamel because it's so highly wanted by people, especially by Voldemort for his return. Other wizards too would also want this stone if they had knowledge of it, which I'm sure they did. The fact that he would just have it chilling in his cupboard was just such a plot hole to me, because it's just like, well, anybody could come in, he's weak as fuck, and disarm the guy, stupefy him or something, grab the Philosopher's Stone and easily use it for themselves to be immortal forever, and bam, Nicholas Flamel is dead. And I hope that he has a bigger role in the films. The last thing I want to mention, and I promise this is the last thing, and I really wanted to make this video to be not too nitpicky. The editing was not too great. I'm so glad that someone else noticed this. I was watching Evan Edinger and he noticed it. At the beginning when Newt goes into the Ministry, there's a lot of close-ups on Lita's face, and you're just thinking, okay, is this meant to be like from his point of view, like what is the point of this? I don't know if it's because I'm media study trained in my brain, so I'm like, why are they using close-ups right now? But to me it really stood up and took me out of the world. I was like, whoa, why are we this close to her face? Like, is he about to kiss her? I don't know, I just thought that was really weird, and they don't really use that kind of filming throughout the rest of the film, so it was kind of like, why was that there? Was there something important on her face that I was supposed to notice? Like, why is it that close? Like, back up a little bit. At the end, when it finished, I was kind of like, wait, we're at the ending? Like, usually you can sense when you're at the end of a film, but it got to the end and I literally said out loud, I'm pretty sure everyone heard me because the cinema wasn't too packed. There was like hardly anyone there. I just went, is that it? There was no structure to this film. And structure is very important, and while structure isn't something that you openly think about while you're watching a film, it is important, and the only reason I noticed it had no structure was because of the abrupt ending. I can't even remember how it actually ended. All I remember is being shocked that it was the ending, because I was like, wait, what? There were a lot of enjoyable parts for it. I really enjoyed seeing Hogwarts again for the nostalgia. I really enjoyed Dumbledore. I thought he played him really well. Again, I love Newt's character. I thought it was a really good film. I just think for any fan that is like really nerdy like me, it was annoying in parts, and that's what took you out of it. I think if she'd never said anything on Twitter about Dumbledore being gay and all these other things, it would be okay, but there are a lot of things that can be considered plot holes. However, right now I'm not going to jump down her throat because I haven't seen the rest of the films yet, and neither has anyone else, so I think we do need to keep that in our minds when we're criticising this film. So if you enjoyed this video, you can like, you can comment, and you can subscribe. I make new videos every single week, or at least I try to. Please have nice, civil conversations in the comments down below. If you treat me with respect and comment with respect, I won't feel the need to respond in any type of way. I do get annoyed when people just leave comments like kill yourself. I'm like, okay, that's a bit extreme. And when people think that I'm taking it to heart, this is just a video that I just found interesting to discuss because I'm into Harry Potter. It's really not that deep to me, and it doesn't impact my life that hardcore. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm sorry that it's so long. Peace out.